Welcome to the Joy Inspired podcast. I'm Nikki Cruz, and I'm thrilled to explore with you what it means to walk in a faith-infused business. This is your space to find powerful tools and insights to build with resilience and to create impact through your unique purpose, discovering a joy that only God can provide. Together, let's embrace a business journey anchored in faith and empowered by joy. Let's jump in. Welcome back. We've got another episode of the Joy Inspired podcast where we get to carry on talking about how to elevate God, how to infuse more of our values and our faith into our entrepreneurial journey so that we can have that joy, the resilience that comes from aligning your purpose with your business. Well, we've covered a couple of hot topics recently. We've been talking about marketing your business with integrity and honoring God through the goals you have in your business and glorifying God through your social media. All of that goes towards building your Christ-centered brand. However, when we get to the nitty-gritty of it, when we look and evaluate how to do these things, one question always comes up. What will the judgment of the masses be? And sometimes we can be glib and say, well, we don't care, it doesn't matter. Most of the time, we really have a fear inside us that drives us to make those decisions. This topic today hits home for everybody, whether you're an entrepreneur, but especially a Christian entrepreneur, or just the person walking through everyday life. The fear of rejection. You know that feeling where you put your heart into something, to a social media post or into reaching out to a friend, and it really gets a response? Or you offer your services to somebody who tells you, no thanks. You reach out for collaboration and you get crickets. I think we've all experienced this. Sometimes it's not just the crickets we get. Sometimes we get criticism, we get jeers. And you know what? Rejection stings. When we are putting our business and ourselves on the line, we so worry about other people's opinions and their acceptance that we tend to forget whose we are and, in fact, who we are. Because we are kids of the King. We have already that acceptance into the kingdom of God. What greater place to want acceptance for, right? And yet we forget it. When we make those decisions to live out our faith and our values in our business, to show up real, honest, and vulnerable, we worry so much that it will cost our business. You know, we really get to understand that there is a place and a healthy place for fear. But more than that healthy fear, which allows us to thrive and grow and be strong, we get to be aware that the fear of things like rejection and the fear that cripples us and chokes us is not of God. The healthy fear I'm talking about is the awe and the reverence we have for God. It's not in fear of Him, it's in fear of what we will miss out on if we don't have Him. That's how I see it anyway. But another healthy fear, can you imagine if you're walking towards a cliff and you have no fear of falling over the edge? Well, fear can be seen as a healthy respect for the laws of gravity in this case, but it doesn't stop you from taking a walk at all. When we market and even how we view our own worth in business can be so affected. If we're not careful, it can start defining the way we show up, the way we market, and the value we place on ourselves in our business. But today, let's break that cycle, fear of rejection. We're claiming it to not be holding us, and we're reclaiming our greatest business asset, God Himself. The reason why that fear of rejection, which we are all going to experience again. I'm sure we all have before. Why is it so powerful? Because let's be honest, that fear is about more than the no. It's about what that no whispers to us. It's about what we go over in our mind when we hear that no. And you know what? Very often a no isn't a rejection. Sometimes it's God's protection. Sometimes it's God going, not now. Sometimes it just avoids the most drastic mistake. Sometimes it just avoids being in relationship with people who we aren't aligned with. Doesn't mean there's anything wrong with them. They might be ideal for somebody else for business, but in the end, it wouldn't serve you to be in business with them. But the questions that come out are maybe my business isn't good enough. Maybe I'm really not cut out for this. Maybe people don't really want what I have to offer. And we start to listen to the echoes and the whispers of the world instead of listening to the booming loud voice of God that says, you are enough. When you align with me, there is success, there is joy, and you are wanted, loved, appreciated. And I have designed you with a purpose, so you are very much relevant and needed. Those are the thoughts we get to hear. Instead of listening to that little voice that comes out of the fear that says, maybe I should just shrink back. Any of those things sound familiar? I know I've sure been there. But here's the thing. When we let that fear of rejection control us, it affects everything. It affects how we treat ourselves and how we respect ourselves. It affects how we view others. And we begin to play small. We begin to change our message so that it sounds like everybody else's, hoping that it's going to be safe. We begin to market in the way the world demands we market. And the goals we set for our business become more achievable because we're no longer setting them as goals that are going to honor God, but goals that are going to serve the business. And we come out on social media in a way that isn't real, but it's acceptable. I don't know about you, but I would rather be unacceptable and be standing, honoring God, and knowing in all my faith his promises are true. Because the most dangerous part, we forget our success isn't in the hands of the people whose rejection we fear, it's in the hands of God. Think about the life that Christ lived. Think about the rejection he suffered. Rejection is part of the calling you have. Jesus himself was rejected. He was despised and rejected by men, a man of sorrows and acquainted with grief. And that's Isaiah 53:3 tells us that Jesus went through that. He was rejected by friends. He was rejected by people who didn't know him. And when he faced that rejection, he turned around and he carried on with his eyes set with the task set before him. If he faced rejection, why do we expect our journey to be free of rejection? Success in God's kingdom doesn't mean everybody's going to applaud us. It means we get to walk obediently to do what he called us to do. In that obedience, we find joy. So when we start having that fear of rejection that clouds over us, we no longer see clearly. I've seen it so often with Christian entrepreneurs. We start with a passion, that fear of rejection sneaks in, and suddenly we stop sharing our faith because we don't want to offend anyone. We post generic content instead of boldly sharing our God-given message. And we underprice ourselves because we're afraid people will say we're too expensive. We compare ourselves to others and feel like we'll never measure up. But friend, You and I, we weren't meant to blend in. We were called to shine and to shine bright. Matthew 5:14 says, "You are the light of the world, city set on a hill, cannot be hidden." We were created unique, individual, be somebody else, and not to blend in. If your breakthrough is on the other side of somebody else's rejection, what if the no from one person leads you to a yes from another that you wouldn't have been able to actually say yes to, should that no not come up? What if God actually sent someone to work with you that you didn't have the opportunity to meet because you were busy with the no you pressed in on? So real. We know it. Yet so often it's just theory to us. So, how do we overcome this fear of rejection in business? It's one thing to mention all the problems. Let's talk about solutions. Because God didn't call us to stay stuck in fear, He called us to move forward in faith. We get to be honest with ourselves, we get to be real instead of standing up and saying, "We're not afraid because God's on my side." We get to acknowledge what we're actually feeling and surrender that to God. So, shift our perspective is one of the first bricks. Instead of seeing rejection as failure, see it as a redirection. God may be protecting you from something that isn't aligned with His will, and you may think it looks perfectly right. Proverbs 3, verses 5 and 6 remind us, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to Him, and He'll make your path straight. Rejection doesn't mean you're not called. It means that you're being positioned for the right doors to open the right time. Secondly, we get to anchor our confidence in God, not in people. The world tells us our value is based on likes, bank balance, shares, and sales. But our true value, unshakable, because it comes from God. It is set. And in Jeremiah 1:5, it says, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart." So that value and that worth has been set. God called you before a single person clicked follow or buy. And if He's called you, no rejection can take that away. So we get to show up with boldness, perfection. I can tell you right now, if I was waiting till I was perfect doing a podcast, perfect background, look perfect, this podcast wouldn't exist. And by the same token, if I constantly questioned how I show up, instead of surrendering it to God, giving it everything I could, and wanting it to be perfect, nothing would be here. So stop waiting until your message is polished enough. Trying to make your marketing flawless. People don't connect with perfection, they connect with authenticity. You know how many times I've worried about, well, I look good today, but this is out of place or that is out of place. And then on the other hand, I think, wow, I look great on screen. What's going to happen when people meet me in person? Yeah, isn't it amazing how I feel split from one side to another? The most impact people on social media, they're not just posting highlight reels, they are sharing their real journey. That's what makes them impactful. They share their struggles and then their breakthroughs. And Paul said in 2 Corinthians 12, verse 9, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. God isn't looking for perfect posts. He's looking for a willing heart behind that post. So stay focused on your mission, not on the numbers. Yes, your business is a ministry. Whether you're selling coaching products or services, your job isn't just to make a sale, it's to serve people well. So instead of obsessing over the numbers, focus on the impact. Who can you encourage today? How can you share God's wisdom through your content? And how can you show up for the people God has already given you? Because if God has you positioned and lined up to be serving somebody, He will bring them across your path. The world is chasing followers all the time. Jesus focused on disciples. So stay faithful in the small things, and God will bring that increase. Because when we focus on God and when we stand in faith, believing the promises He's given us, there is so much less fear. And we get to surrender that fear to Him. When we focus on the fear, we start to wobble at the knees and we look down instead of looking up and seeing where He's pointing us. If you've been shrinking back in fear, I want to challenge you. Step out boldly. Share your message. Invite God into your marketing. Embrace the no's because they're leading to your God ordained yes. And I'll leave you with this powerful quote from Lisa Bevere. If you're not being rejected every now and then, maybe you're not really stepping out in faith. Let that sink in for a moment. So let's commit to showing up, even if it's scary. Let's trust that God is the CEO of our business. And let's choose faith over fear, knowing He's called us, He's equipped us, positioned us for such a time as this. So often we fear the rejection before we've even got anyone around. Put that rejection forward. Serve to your best ability. Because if you can look yourself in the mirror, and if you know Jesus, He's putting His hand on your shoulder saying, well done. Whose rejection do you need to fear? I'd love to hear from you how you overcome those fears of rejection, because we all experience them. Sometimes we even imagine them, and we see rejection where it isn't. But be vulnerable. Recognize when you are afraid. Recognize what you are afraid of. Also, recognize that not everybody you think is rejecting you is in fact rejecting you. Let's keep encouraging one another. Stay strong and step boldly into your purpose, into your God-given calling. So instead of rejecting people, be supportive and loving. Just because you're saying no doesn't mean you have to be giving a rejection. Christ was rejected so many times, but He was also being accepted at the same time. And you are accepted by Him, by the blood of Christ. And that blood is what has made you part of the kingdom of God. You are sealed, you are an heir. You cannot be rejected from that. Blessings all. Go out and throw away the rejection, embrace the love and who you are. And we will catch you next week. Thank you so much for joining me on the Joy Inspired Podcast at www.joyinspiredpodcast.com. Make sure you hit that subscribe button so that you can get this and every other episode that comes out. We have lots of great stuff coming and you don't want to miss it. So make sure to hit that subscribe. I am so grateful for all the reviews and comments, and I look forward to serving you in next week's episode.